Thank you for listening to 365 Brothers, the podcast. I'm your host, Robin Shine. I am so excited that you are here listening to these amazing collection of brothers that I have curated by reaching out to men from various professions, all parts of the United States. Please remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts because you don't want to miss even one of these brothers. Today, we're speaking with entrepreneur and lifestyle coach, Sherman Perryman. Sherman's talent was featured in the docu-series Black Business Los Angeles. He's also written a book, From Grit to Greatness, harnessing the 5 pillars of the militant grind. He promotes a balanced life that nurtures mind, body, and soul, embodying a holistic approach to achievement. Sherman, is there anything you'd like to share with the listeners to help them get to know you better before we jump into the questions?
I would just say that I'm like a creative entrepreneur, and I'm pretty hard to figure out unless you get to know me. You'll pinpoint, okay, I can understand what type of guy that person is.
What are your favorite words? Phrase, quote, or book?
Oh, my favorite word is resilience. One of my favorite quote is do it now, not later. And one of my favorite books that like really impacted me was the autobiography of Malcolm X.
When did you read it and what was the impact?
So I read it when I was 16 years old, when I was in high school, and the impact was me actually discovering my self-worth as a young Black man in America and finding a sense of self-worth. And so after reading it, I got very militant. I got very determined. I was like this close to joining the Nation of Islam. Like I was right there. And I feel like it just changed the trajectory of my entire life.
What was it in what he was saying that resonated with you?
It was more so us having some type of value and something to believe in. It wasn't just all about the trauma and things that we've been through. It was more so how we overcame and how we are worthy of life. I grew up in LA and it was just about gang banging, drugs, violence, and stuff like that. And just to read something different that actually was just like, no, you can be better. You can be great. You are great. You have a great history. There are great things about you. There's great things about your ancestors. That resonated with me like no other. And I was addicted to reading the book. I would finish my work early and then right after in my book, just reading it all day.
Yeah.
Instead of just reading it, I wanted to be more practical about it. And so I would go to the mosque in LA, Mosque 27, and I'll be amongst the brothers in the Nation of Islam, just to be like, okay, if this entity of people could change this man and bring him out of the darkness and help him become the person that he is, it must be something about it. And so that's when I went to the mosque. I got relationships with some of the brothers in the Nation of Islam. And from there, I felt like I had something that would just have me on the straight and narrow path when it comes to just living in life, period.
Yeah. Oh, you taking me back, bro. Cause I went to school in elementary school at Temple 27. Boys went to school in the morning, girls in the afternoon. We had a van that took about 7 or 8 of us from Long Beach. That's where I'm from. And we would drill in the morning.
You were MGT?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I hadn't heard. I was like, I was. And it's, oh, yeah, I was. It's been a while. I went back to public school in 5th grade, but I'll never forget. I've shared this story once before, and I'll keep it short. But I didn't do my math homework one time. And that math teacher was a brother. And I had already had a crush on this man. He was tall. He had a fro. He was all that. And I didn't do my homework. And he was like, all right, you didn't do your homework. Come to the front of the room. I came to the front of the room. Hold your hand out. Got those swats with the ruler. It was 5 of them. I think my hand was red the next day. And that is how I made it to Stanford University.
Hey, I heard that they have a real solid foundation that the kids that goes through those schools, they end up being really successful, high level education.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not from fear, but it is from everything you said. Like, why are you acting like you're not intelligent? Why are you acting like you don't know how to get your stuff done on time? Why are you acting like you're not exceptional? And you're just like, I don't know. Okay, I act like I'm exceptional then, dang.
Because I remember when I was happy that I got a 3.0 and I got B's on my report card. And to me, that was something, a 3 point something. And then I went to a brother that was in the nation and he was like, "You didn't do good enough." I was like, "What?" He was like, "Nah, if you didn't get A's, you didn't do good enough." But I expected him to be proud of me, happy. "Yeah, brother, this is good. Keep going." He was like, "Nah, we not settling for that, bro." I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." But then it just gave me a sense of we can't aim so low when it comes to our greatness. I feel like
Mhm.
that's what I got from them is we often aim too low when we should be the best that we could possibly be. And that's
Yeah.
by doing the work and doing the good work. Yeah.
Man, you know what? This is like therapy right here because I'm gonna tell you, I got a bit of a reputation on my campus because I believe that students can succeed. And I stand for that, which I'm not interested in changing that, but I appreciate seeing a little bit of where that comes from because for the students, it's we got to do it right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the truth, other teachers, other staff, they're, why can't you just let them win? It's okay because and they're dealing with a lot of stuff. And so, maybe we could. I'm like, yeah, we could, but he's capable and you're feeding him some stuff that's not going to work. And these are Black and brown children. And what you're coddling right now, when they step out in the world, when they can't hold down a job, are you going to chip in on their rent?
Right.
So, anyway,
Right.
let me move on. So, what is a significant person, moment, or event that either changed the trajectory of your life or had a significant impact on your life?
Man, I have so many of those. I feel like one that sticks out the most was when I was in the airport with my daughter and I was traveling from Arizona where she lives now to LA. And there was a man that I was sitting there. And usually when I have my daughter, that kind of opens up conversations for people to talk about kids, family, and life and things of that sort. And he said, "Be tough, but also show grace." And that kind of changed the trajectory of like how I parent because my dad was also in the Nation of Islam, also 27, with Minister Khalid Muhammad. So he
Okay.
was there in the 80s.
All right.
And during that time, Minister Khalid Muhammad was very militant. And
Mm,
so after I figured out who he was when I got older as an adult, and I figured out that him and my dad were actually friends in the Nation of Islam, they did things together, etc. And I listened to him speak. I was like, "Oh, okay. Now I understand why my father was really militant, which is like my brand militant grind." And it was all about alpha bravado, tough,
yeah.
tough, tough. But then, like, when I've heard a man say, "Be tough, but also show grace," it was okay. I have to have a balance. It can't only just be me being tough on people and tough on my kids and reigning with the iron fist. There has to be a balance of love and some type of grace. And I
Mm,
always repeat that in my mind when I'm going through something, or sometimes weekly. It's be tough, but also have grace. And
yeah.
I don't even remember what that man looked like, what his name was, whatever. We were just waiting on our flight, and
Hmm.
that's what happened.
Yeah. Isn't that
Yeah.
funny how you can't predict what moment is going to be the one that really alters your character. But I love that. And that is definitely something I can relate to. I'm trained to expect the best. So I'm expecting the best.
Hmm.
And then to get that, not everybody is up for it in that moment, in that way. And sometimes what there is to do is to put, as you said, the grace or the compassion forward to get them to a place where the best is now possible. So, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I have plenty more, but that's one that really sticks out.
Well,
Because
give
all
me
the
one
one that
more.
okay, all right, so this is a funny one. I moved from LA to Atlanta, and my idea about the South, especially old white men in the South, is that they must be racist. That's what I was programmed to believe, just being from LA, going to the South. And so I had this old white male that was a English teacher, and I wish I remember his name, but I did. I only had it for one semester. But he took a keen liking to me, and I was confused on why. I must have had low self esteem, a low sense of self worth, because when that man said to me, "Sherman, I'm going to be glad to say that I know you one day." And it hit me like, huh? What? First, I'm a young kid from LA, and I have my flaws and stuff like that, but it's like hearing an elderly white man say that in the South and somebody that I didn't know like really affected me. And I was just like, what is it about me that he sees that I don't see that made him say that? But actually, he read some of the things that I've written, and he was just like, I like your style of writing. Have a sense
Mhm.
of humor and like a good style when it comes to putting your thoughts down. And I was just like, wow. But then I've also noticed as an adult, people see, especially teachers, you see a lot of people's characters, personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you could see, okay, this type of personality, I could see where this can go based off of
Mhm.
thousands of personalities that I
Good.
have to
Look,
observe as a
dude.
teacher.
Yep.
Yeah, my dad was a teacher, he's retired, but he would even say things about my kids that I didn't understand because I didn't observe as many people that he has observed. So now that I'm older, I get it. There's something about you that he's seen that he doesn't really see in anybody else, or maybe he's seen it in somebody else and that person became something. So then now I'm more so I need to surrender and trust the process and surrender myself to greatness. Because often people say things and I don't understand it. And then I have to go back and reflect and be like, oh, okay, this is what this meant. And I'm a firm believer in telling people how you feel at that moment. And it may not hit them at the moment, but a couple years later or a couple years down the road, they'll be like, oh, okay, now I understand why you said that.
Yeah.
Still have to
You have
say
to
it
say
now.
it.
I have
I
friends
know it lands.
contact me and they'll be like, "I remember when you told me this and whatever." And I didn't understand it at the time, but now I get it. And I want to thank you for letting me know. I don't even remember what I said. But then it's just we have to let these people know because even though it may not hit them now, it could hit them years later. Like
Yes.
2015, 10, whatever. Like they'll just be like, I remember when this person said this to me. Oh, so that's what that was. Because first it's confusion, which may be the best thing because when you're confused, you're trying to figure it out. And while you're trying to figure out, you're gonna remember where the confusion stemmed from.
Yes.
Because I feel like the reason why I remember these small events is because I was confused at first.
Yeah. Cognitive dissonance. The moment someone says something that you're not expecting, because people don't say that to you, there's this
Right.
cognitive dissonance and it makes wiring in your brain go, what was that? What was that? I don't know. I don't know. We don't have time right now. We got to go eat. File that. Excluding your parents or guardians.
Mhm.
Who was the first person that you can recall as having earned your respect? And I use the word earn loosely. I just mean they were the first person that made you go, oh, wow, that's a human being, or that's a man, or that's who I want to be.
And I would have to really know this person like in real life.
That was the intention, but it does not have to be. Who comes to
Um,
mind?
it had to be Malcolm X.
Yeah.
And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, hands down. Maybe because they're both Tauruses and I am too, I don't know. But usually, honestly, it's always a Taurus, like even Damon Dash, Jay-Z's whole partner, because I just admired the way that they spoke truth to power unapologetically. And they spoke what's on their mind and they spoke from the heart. And they had women and children and they had the things that I admire, like family. They put their family
Mm,
first. And
mm,
I feel like those were probably the best examples that I could almost have because I was obsessed with listening to Malcolm X, reading his book, learning everything about him. And I think it first stemmed from when I was a child watching the movie Malcolm X. That kind
okay.
of impacted me. And then I was like, okay, I already watched the movie. I don't need to read the book. But after I read the book, I was like, oh, whoa, then listen to his speeches and then getting into Minister Farrakhan, seeing him speak several times. Like there was never a time where Minister Farrakhan touched any city that I was in where I did not go see him. Period.
Okay.
If
Okay.
he's gonna be here, I will be there. And Dame Dash, I was just like so encompassed by his interviews. And I really admired how these people were able to speak fearlessly and I
Mm,
guess because I'm like the same way, the same type of persona where I'm fearless and I'm blunt and people say, Sherm will tell it like it is. That's like my personality, but I just admire fearless. Even when these people think that death will come around or people persecute them and prosecute them, they still stood their ground. And
mhm.
that's what I admired.
I love that. towards the bull, stand their ground.
Right.
That's one of the characteristics of a bull, of the symbol of Taurus.
Mhm.
And a bunch of things come to my mind. At least a half dozen and perhaps a dozen brothers out of the 160 I've interviewed have referenced that book at some point in the interview, different points.
Mhm.
The other thing is, again, in a couple recent interviews, brothers mentioning the impact of the Million Man March, which was a creation of Louis Farrakhan. And so I guess I share all that because when that teacher said, "You're somebody I'm going to be glad I knew or remember fondly that I knew you," the choices and who you admire says a lot about the strength to which you bring what you do. So I'm actually just going to take a moment and ask you to share a little bit about what you do and what you're up to in the world now that we know who you look up to.
Right now, I have a brand called Militant Grind. I'm the founder of it, and I'm into fitness, into working out, also into self help. I started my journey when I was a teenager, just reading self help books, starting with the autobiography of Malcolm X, as well as like a plethora of other books that you can see in my background. I also have another bookshelf too, but I just wanted to become a better version of myself. And I knew that where I was at and the way I thought and my mentality at the moment as a young black man in America wouldn't get me anywhere because I didn't really have the examples that I needed in order to be the man that I wanted to become. Because as growing up in LA, we have like people that either work for the county, the city, or the state. But we really didn't have that many black communities where it was just like a bunch of lawyers, and maybe they did in Ladera Heights, but I wasn't too privy of that. I grew up in Carson and
Right.
also South Central LA. So it was like your mom either worked for the DMV, post office, etc. But there was like nobody that really owned big businesses or small businesses and things like that. And I knew that I didn't want to be a drug dealer and I didn't want to play basketball, but I didn't want to become wealthy. So I was like, I have
Mhm.
to figure this out. So I got into real estate, finance, and things like that, but along my journey of doing that, it was more so, okay, you still need to become a better version of you while you're trying to pursue these things because you grew up in a community where people aren't used to having these things or even like dealing with people that could even afford $1 million home and stuff like that. You have to have a different type of mentality versus somebody that you grew up with in the hood. You know what I'm saying? So I
I do.
steadily kept developing myself. And during that journey, also helped develop other people who I was around in my circle of influence and things like that. And then I was just like, you know what, I'm pretty good at this because a lot of people admire me, not because of I'm a real estate agent or I do taxes or I do all of these different things. They admire me because of my perseverance and how I help change their life. And from working out to reading to just becoming a better version and me admiring those men that I named earlier, they were all about helping people see a better version of themselves. And so I was just like, maybe I should do something similar to that because I actually enjoy it. I would love to
Mhm.
talk to somebody about how they could see the world differently, their perspectives and things like that, because I've been accumulating this knowledge for years and years. And so now that I have it, I could give it to somebody else based off of the milestones and the things that I achieved in life coming from where I came from to where I am now. And
Yeah.
so I was just like, okay, what could I call it based off of me and my personality? And then something came in my mind like militant grind. And I was
Mhm.
just like, oh, okay, because I do work hard, I grind, but I'm also militant
Mhm.
at the same time. And just due to my background, it made sense. It's like, okay, this resonates with me. And once I came out with this, started doing videos and things like that, I have never received the unwavering support of anything else that I've done
Mhm.
besides this. I'm talking about
Mhm.
everybody that I grew up with, people that I met in passing, people that I met 8 years ago. They were like, man, I love this for you. This is, you should, yeah, you have a podcast too, because I've been hearing for so long. Like, start a podcast, man. You have a lot of great ideas. Start a
Mhm.
podcast or start speaking and things like that. And I just ignored it. But then there had to be a time where I was just like, you know what? I need to get over myself and I need to actually do this. And so
Yeah.
last year, after I got laid off, and I hated getting laid off because it like messes up your whole financial situation or whatever, I was like, I need to do something where I am the product, where I can have control, where I am not depending on any intermediary to make money, where I could
Mhm.
do this and I could feel like I'm living a purpose filled life and it brings real change and impact to people. And so that's when I came up with the militant grind. And I even have merchandise where it just has affirmations on there. I am
Mhm.
powerful. I am divine. And I just have that just plain on the shirt.
Mm.
And what I want people to see is that when you put this on and you look at yourself and other people look at you, there's expectations. You can't walk around with a shirt that says
Hmm.
militant grind looking sloppy. And
Yep.
so it is funny. So one of my friends, he loves his shirt. He wears it all the time. And the lady looked at him and she was just like, you must be somebody to walk around with a shirt that says militant grind.
Mm.
And he is. He has his doctorate degree. He's doing very great things, but it's just, okay, yeah. So it has to resonate with people that are doing something. And even
Yeah.
like a lot of the people that buy my merchandise are all very like well spoken and very good people from all walks of life. And so I was just like, yeah, that's what I want to represent. That's what I want to put out there in the world. And after going to several funerals these past few years, I was just like, man, somebody's obituary and you don't see that this person had a Benz or this person bought a $5 million house or this person did this. The only thing that is typically in an obituary is the impact that person has made and their legacy. All of the other material items don't matter. No, they're
Mm.
not gonna say, yeah, he owned 5 Versace shirts. That's not gonna be in there. So it's
I
like,
love that you
what?
said that.
Yeah, like, I always think about this. What is gonna be in my obituary when I leave this earth? What is it gonna say? How are people gonna feel at my funeral? I just think about those things because those are really things to think about, like the legacy that you leave behind. You don't have to be the most famous person in the world, or you don't have to be Oprah. If you impact 25 people, that could be enough to change the world or the community, period. Because those
Yeah.
25 are going to turn into 50 and 100 and 200 and 400. And they could just spread like wildfire. And
You
nobody doesn't
know,
even have to know that it's you, but the universe and God knows that it was you.
you don't have to be LeBron James. You don't have to be Obama or Farrakhan,
Mhm.
but all those little things that you do that empower and uplift,
Right.
you uplift a child, you uplift a neighbor, you uplift somebody in passing in the Starbucks line, and it changes their day. And you have no idea how the way that you changed their day
Yeah,
changed the world.
that's true.
And
Mhm.
so I love what you're saying. And also, I acknowledge you for hearing the call and answering it because throughout your life, and I think this is true for all of us, if you look back, people have been telling you what you should do. They've been pointing out your gift your whole life. And it's hard to listen. It's hard to listen because society is telling you, back to your point, that what matters is that Benz, and what matters is that 4 bedroom, and what matters is what you wear it. What designer is that? Are you sure it's not fake? And
I'm just
so,
saying. Yep.
so people are so caught up. It's like society is almost designed like a video game to take you off goal and distract you,
Mhm.
but people are dropping hints your whole life. And so I acknowledge you for going, oh, okay, fine. I'm going to listen. Yeah. Cause it's not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, no, I'm like, man, I should have started this earlier because to be honest, me and my friends been talking about doing a podcast together for years. But then there became a time where it was just like, you have to just do this yourself. If you do some things with certain people or other people, it may not go the way you want it to go. So you have to be in control. And I had to just man up and be like, okay, I'm about to just do this. Cause I started one before in 2019 and then I stopped, but I feel like it's perfect timing now, but then I'm just glad that I listened. And you're right though. One of my friends passed away in March and it was just crazy going through our messages. And he was like, "Bro, you really need to start a podcast. I'll invest, I'll do whatever. The stuff that you're saying, I don't agree with all of it, but it needs to get out." And now that I'm
Mhm.
thinking about him just losing his life due to cancer, rest in peace, Carlos Rivas. But it
Mm.
was just like, man, you at least have the opportunity to still do this. and that person is gone.
Yeah.
You have to take this serious because you never know when you're gonna go. It sounds good to be say when I retire at 75, when I retire at 80, or when my grandkids. That sounds nice, but it's not gonna be the reality for all of us.
I know. Look, I'm bumping up. I only got a few years left before I retire. And let me tell you, I would love to do it after I retire because I will have so much time. But that's not what I heard. So we're doing
Uh-huh.
it now while we're still working. But you
Right.
to your point is you don't know. And there are people who didn't get that chance. And for me, as soon as you said his name, Carlos Rivas, I felt like he's up there like getting your back
Yeah.
porting from where he's at, from his end over there
Mhm.
whispering, angels, and get over here.
Right, exactly. That's what I honestly think about. I have a lot of close friends that passed away recently these past few years. And I'm just thinking about, oh man, I have an army now.
Right?
I have some hard hitters behind me now because they were my guardians on earth. These
Hmm.
people that passed away from 2020 to now were the people that I would call if I had a problem that'll be ready, guns blazing. One was
Yeah,
a police officer. So it's funny how now they're up there and I'm like, oh, don't think that it's switched up. It's still the same thing, you
that's
know?
right. What insights from your career or your formal training can you share with our listeners to help them get more out of life? And this
Oh,
is your specialty. So I know it's going to be hard because I know you got 1,000 things you can share. But just
yeah.
what one would you drop right now?
I would say live below your means as much as you possibly can and try to save for retirement and get some cash flowing assets for sure. So that's one thing that I would say because me being in the mortgage businesses and doing taxes and stuff like that, I see that when people retire, when they get older, it's very hard on them just to survive, and the inflation prices are going up, but they're living off Social Security and the same income. And then they'll have to take on a job that they don't want and they can't spend time with their family like they want to. So it's don't believe the hype of, okay, I got approved for a home for 600,000. I need to find a home for 600,000. Find a home for 400 and start
Hmm.
saving and put your money into other things. Don't just sit there with a bunch of equity inside of your home. If you have it, refinance, pull out, and invest it in another home or another cash flowing asset. And just play the game as much as you possibly can because it is very ugly. It was hard on me to do taxes for some of my clients and seeing them like almost get to tears because they owe money and they don't have any money and they're retired. And I'm
Mm.
talking about people that he passed away, but one of my clients worked for Northrop Grumman as an engineer or something like that,
Okay.
and
Sure.
still going through it. Yeah, that's one thing I've learned that I would tell people, and also spend money on your health and your well being and eat good foods, please. Don't think that just because somebody told you that it's healthy that it is, because more than likely it's not. Yeah, that's what I would say.
You
That's
drop things so much good knowledge. I really appreciate that perspective you bring as someone, not just in the mortgage industry and working in real estate, but also from the tax side, because when your taxes are done, you laying it bare. This is a picture of this is my life right now. And that you through that work have been left with such a clear impression about the importance of planning for retirement. Honestly, if I'm real with you, I'm almost embarrassed to say this. It wasn't until I started teaching econ in my 30s
Mhm.
that I really started getting what I needed to do financially to prep for the future. I remember being in my 20s, like 21, 22, and I can't remember if he's the guy that started Primerica or if he started some other, but there was this man, he wrote this book, 10 Rules of Saving or 10 Rules of something. And I read it and I understood it and I got it. I still cashed out my 401k from the job I had in my 20s. I still didn't put 10% away. I saw it, I heard it, it made sense. I didn't do it. And then I started teaching econ and I started really understanding inflation.
Yeah.
That $1 million today, that's pretty, baby. That's pretty. But if you're gonna live another 50 years, that's not still 1 million like you thinking it is.
Yeah. Also, let's just say that, okay, $1 million isn't the same. And so you're thinking that if you have this money saved in the bank, that it's doing something for you. But the money sitting in the bank is the biggest waste of time because you're not adding on to the depreciation. So I have a million sitting here, it's not making me any money. 10 years go by, it's not the same million. But if you put that same 10 million inside of an asset that's gonna go up with inflation or give you
Mm-hmm.
at least a percentage of the money back and
Mm-hmm.
compound interest, then it's okay. Now we're talking. Now we could do something.
I know this, and we're gonna move on because this is not a money show, but since you brought it up, I will say this. I know it feels like you can't afford to put more in your 403B or your 401k. It feels like you can't afford to put in for your child's education. You can't afford to do a 457, but you can't afford not to. And that's the part that's not clear because that part only becomes clear in the future, but you living in the present.
Like growing up, my father he taught math and he had an engineering degree and he was like super cheap. Like he never really had a car note. He paid things cash and stuff like that. And now that I'm older and I see the way he's living now, I'm like, oh, I get it now. He was doing some other stuff with that money. He was for
Mm.
the future. And he was a teacher. But he just did smart things with his money. He wasn't a spendthrift. He drives a 2003 car. Like a car came out in 2003.
Yeah.
And you look across the street or whatever, and they're in like Benzes and stuff like that. But then it's like when you look up the net worth, he's probably worth more by
Mm-hmm.
far based off of his
Mm-hmm.
assets and things that he owns. And I'm like, oh, okay. I see it now, especially when you're living on a salary with a family of five.
Exactly.
So it's
Mm.
got to play it a little different.
Look, I drive a 2008 Lexus, but I have to say, I'm gonna have a scotch with my meal. Okay, no, I'm having a scotch with my meal. Shut up.
There has to be certain things that you spend your money on to enjoy yourself. I say for me, it's food. Like I love high quality food. I won't go
Thanks.
cheap on food. I
Mm.
don't care. I'm
Mm-hmm.
organic, this is and the third. But then I start thinking about it, I'm like, there's people that have nice things, but they spend their money on junk food. But then it's if you because you former MGT, you already know, like we don't play with diets at all anything that goes in your body. But yeah, so I listened to one man, he said this before. It's like people are driving fancy cars, but if they just took that car out of the equation and start investing more in their health, they'll live a
Right.
better life.
A much better life. You'll have more energy to do the things you really want to do. You spin wisdom. People, you guys got to go check out his site, his podcast. Links will be in the show notes. Really, you got to check this brother out. So let's get to know him a little bit more still. Apart from the Obama presidency, which pivotal historic event has left the most profound impression on you and how has it shaped your perspective?
Definitely, it definitely was not the Obama presidency. Or no. Historic event, I would say probably the Million Man March. That probably had a big profound effect on me. And I was a kid, I was 9 years old, but it was still just like very impactful seeing a group of a lot of 2 million plus black men get together in DC versus seeing the riots, seeing buildings burning down and stuff like that. Like I really didn't have too many good images of my people growing up in the 90s at
Mm-hmm.
all. It was like we had Tupac, Biggie, it was Thug Life and Snoop Dogg, Gin and Juice and Gangsta this and yeah, going through South Central, seeing buildings on fire, stuff like that. But just to see the Million Man March was just crazy. I remember watching it on TV. Wow, this is powerful. And that probably was it for me because growing up in LA, I just had only negative stereotypes of my own people
Yeah.
I grew up at. So seeing that really changed a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I get that. What is a moment or event that highlights your experience or in some way signifies your experience as a Black man in the United States?
I would say during Nipsey Hussle's funeral in LA, that was probably like one of the ones because I went to high school with the people from the same gang as him, and was a gang member and stuff like that. And people were like, "Are you coming down to Crenshaw and Slauson?" I was like, "Hell no! Are you crazy? It's too much tension." I even went to the Staples Center and people were fighting and beating people up trying to get in and stuff like that. But then it was just like my boy called me. He was like, "Man, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed, man. You gotta come. The energy is crazy." Like, people out here playing drums and all of that, and it was more so like a celebration. I was like, "Alright, cool, Imma go," and then I called one of my friends, hopped in his van, and then we were just going down Crenshaw and Slauson, and it was probably one of the most beautiful moments ever in my life. It
Mm,
was just so much love, so much gratitude, so much energy, like everybody getting along, and I'm seeing my friends. I saw my uncle out there. It was just like, wow, like all of my people are getting together to celebrate this man's life that impacted them. The Nation of Islam was out there deep, walking along the casket from Slauson all the way down to like 34th or something like that, down to
mm,
the funeral home,
mhm,
Nicholas Vista. Yeah. And so it was just, man, it was crazy seeing Bloods together, Crips together, dancing together. And it basically just broke the molds on what I thought about my own people. I was thinking like, man, it's gonna be crazy and this is that and the third, and it wasn't that at all. And it was just like being a young black man raised out here, going to school with these people, being a part of that environment. I was just so proud where I was almost crying. That's when I really felt the love. I love my people. Wow, look at this. We're not just ignorant. We could also get together and have a great time and celebrate somebody. Even though that
mhm.
person was a former gang member, he had the rivals of his gang outside celebrating him.
Yeah,
And it was crazy seeing guys out there with red rags. I'm in the van with Crips, by the way. One of the
okay.
guys hop out the van with a blue rag. They're dancing together.
I didn't really know I stopped listening to new music around Tupac. So I didn't really know Nipsey Hussle's music or really who he was, quite frankly, until who he was came out after his death, and I understood what he was up to.
Yeah.
For the people who may not know who he is or how this young man was able to bring together rivals,
Mhm.
like deadly rivals
Yeah, like on site, you're about to
on site. Like
right.
that is quite a scene. So can you say
Yeah.
a little bit?
Nipsey to us, I say, when he first came out, everybody knew what gang he was from, and so since my family grew up in the area and I went to high school with the people from his gang, I was like, "Oh, man, this is cool." So then he was just labeled as a rapper that was gang banging, etc. But then after a while, he switched his ways up and he was talking more about believing in yourself, perseverance. We had it hard. We were subjected to just funky lifestyles. You know what I'm saying? He spoke about how people's moms was on crack and daddy in jail, and we still have to make something out of ourselves. And I feel like he impacted a lot of us in LA that is really from LA and the struggles that we go through. Because somebody that's actually one of us out there speaking on our experiences on our behalf. So we love that man for that. Because
Mm,
nobody could say anything about Nipsey being fake. He's not really from LA. And this is that and the third. Like we had a lot of rappers, but we didn't have rappers that was just like one of us, really. Like
mhm,
almost everyone that we could mention, we could probably just say, God, they weren't really like that, or they weren't what they say, they weren't gang banging, but he was really that. And so seeing somebody come from that to where they're at now, it just gave all of us hope and a sense of hope that was unbelievable because when he passed, it just had a dark cloud over the city where everybody was hurt. If you walk down the street and you seen somebody looking sad, it was because of Nipsey Hussle dying. Like it was very brutal.
and the other thing, and you can correct anything if I get it off, is he was moving into new spaces. He was an entrepreneur. He
Yeah.
was not just an entrepreneur on a single level, like trying to open up his own store, sell his own stuff, but
Yeah.
he was actually interested in the redevelopment of the Black community and investment in that. And I also remember that he was planning to meet with the LA police chief. And I don't recall the details of what that was, but based on what he was about, I had to believe that it was something that would impact community policing or something positive. But again, I just remember that his impact started in music, but then took root in community development.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he also donated, I think, a basketball court to an elementary school in the neighborhood, I think 52nd Street. And he had a neighborhood knit foundation where he was actually bringing kids together to learn some things about STEM. Yeah, he
Hmm.
did after school programs and stuff like that. So that also touched a lot of people too. But then his music spoke about that. That was around the time where he was about to pass, but
Yeah.
before then, his music impacted us.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was probably the part of it was what he spoke when it came to his music, his interviews, and things like that, because you've seen somebody change their life and became something and telling you to believe in yourself. The marathon was about you keep going, you believe in yourself, you keep it, don't fold, don't break. You got this. And so he inspired a lot of young entrepreneurs through his story and his resilience to keep going because we all watched him develop. You'll see him at a club or just being a normal person. He wasn't hard to get access to. You might go,
Okay.
oh man, there's Nick. Oh, what's up, man? Hey, what's up, bro? That was not a big deal. So to see him go from selling mixtapes on Crenshaw to the
Mm.
store and being nominated for a Grammy and coming out with an album, and this was after years of him putting in work. You know what I mean? It gave us a
Oh,
sense we could do the same thing and we could become something of ourselves and not sell out because his whole thing was like, I'm gonna do this the independent way. I'm not gonna sign to a major label or whatever. I'm gonna have ownership of myself, my voice, what I believe in, etc. And he held that for over 10 years. Well, just yeah, over 10 years.
I hear that he had a militant grind.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna add, I had a student, must have been 2019. This kid just, oh my gosh, just wouldn't, just won't, just a mess. And I'm not sure if he graduated. I don't think he did, but he might have. Anyway, graduate or not, no one taught him the things that you learned about being a man or having grace. And so one day he was in his car live on Instagram, I think, and he said something. I believe he said something about Nipsey Hussle just going on a rant, putting him down. He ain't this, he ain't that. And this young man, he was trying to get into rap or something like that. Anyway, he's live on IG. People can see where he's at. He was shot and killed.
Oh, you knew that guy?
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was in my classroom.
Oh wow. Yeah, I actually seen that. I watched it actually. I wasn't on the live, but someone shared the video of him getting shot while
Yeah.
he was on live, and it was just kind of
Yeah.
like, wow. But then
Yeah.
that could have been anything. A lot of people love Nipsey Hussle, so that could have been anybody. You can't say his
Right.
name in vain in LA and think you're gonna be smooth because it's too many people love him.
And I think that's why I felt compelled to bring him up because it goes without saying that I wish that hadn't happened, that it should not have happened, period, and full stop, all that. But at the same time, it does paint a picture of how
Mhm,
Nipsey Hussle was,
mhm.
that this kid went on live and was knocking him down, and it didn't work out for him
Yeah.
that he said those things.
Yeah, yeah, but it
Um,
all goes to say where it's like there's a lot of people or a lot of men who you can't say things about or else somebody will retaliate. But you
yeah,
can't because I say you can't say that about Muhammad or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan or Jesus or Malcolm X or whatever. People are gonna come for you because of the love that they have for those people. And just to think that somebody will do something to risk their freedom as well as take another life on behalf of somebody just saying words about Nipsey Hussle actually shows you that. Not to say that's a good thing, necessarily a bad thing. It's just some people are what I would say extremists when it comes to the love that they have for other people.
witness the threats that have gone to people who have spoken out against Trump. It's not about Republican or Democrat. What it is about is, like you're saying, extremists, and how if anyone heard that story about this young kid and thought, these probably some gang member, they're just so ridiculous. I just would encourage you to turn on the news and listen to the extremists we have today who have such deep love that they will drop feces in places that used to be respected, that have
Yeah.
such deep love. They threaten. people that we used to think were above giving death threats and things like that.
There's a man that
And
set
I'll
himself
tell
on
you the truth.
fire in New York protesting. That just recently happened. Like, love is powerful. Like, you never like it could I even say this in my book. Love can make people do bad and love can people make people do good. So you have to be careful with that. Like, I would never say anything publicly against Nipsey. I'll be suicide for somebody like me. Like, what? Are you crazy? No. Like, too many people loved and admired that man where it will make them go crazy. And it's not just because he's from one of the most treacherous Crip gangs in the city. It was more so a lot of people love him. The guy who killed him got beat up by some Mexicans in jail. It wasn't even black people. It was like Mexicans because they love Nipsey too. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's, hey, you never really know, but yeah, you
You
definitely
never
have
really
to be
know. Although,
careful.
as soon as you said that, I have to be honest with you. My mind went to too many shows. I watched that whole genre where, okay, so look, we're going to pay you this amount of money. And here, we can't go against him, but you can go at him.
Who knows?
Who
That
knows?
possibly
But
could have
what we
happened
do
too.
know is the guy got his ass kicked.
Yeah, and my mom told me this a long time ago. She was like, "You have to be careful about what you say about certain people because certain people are anointed, and you can't go against them like you can somebody else." And I was just like, "Oh, okay." But now that I'm older, when I observe different things and got wisdom, I see that more and more. It's like certain people you can't just say anything about. Like you have to be careful.
Look, there's certain things that I'm not going to say politically anymore until I know who's the next president.
Yeah, I don't even get into that because it's just it's drama that I really don't even need to worry about. But
Look,
yeah, I definitely get that.
if you could spend 8 hours with any Black man from any time, who would it be and what would you do or what would you talk about?
It will have to be Malcolm X. And I'll just talk about leadership, perseverance, self love, loving yourself, knowing who you are, and having just like a self esteem. Yeah, it will have to be Malcolm X for sure. That man was like the man to me. Like, absolutely admire everything about Malcolm X. Definitely. And then just his intellect, the way he thought, you asked him a question, the way he responded, how intelligent he was, how intellectual he was, and he was a thinker. And he knew a lot about a lot of different things. And so that's one of the reasons why I would pick him over probably anyone. If just someone that's well known or whatever, I would pick him for sure. But if not
Okay.
him, then my grandfather's. Yeah.
Okay. So you can't just say your grandfather and not give us like at least two, three sentences who he was and why him, because you got all kind of male relatives. So
Yeah.
why your grandfather?
My grandfather, that one that I never met, he died a couple months before I was born. And I've just heard so much about him, how great he was. He had a radio show in Chicago. He was also a community activist and he had a nonprofit where he did things for young boys in the neighborhood. And he also owned businesses too. He had a duplex with 10 kids in it in Chicago. And so
Hmm.
when I first went to Chicago when I was 12, I was like, what the hell? There's a kitchen upstairs and a kitchen downstairs? But then I was so confused. But then now that I was like, oh, that was a duplex. We had 10 kids and he did all that he could do to take care of his family. Even owned a duplex for his whole family to live in. Because if you got 12 people or whatever in one house, you gotta make it do what it do.
Yeah.
He sold cars, he had a rim shop, he had all kind of things going on. And growing up, I think I took on his liking because he was political. He also was friends with Muhammad Ali, Dick Gregory, and a couple of figures as well while he was out there in Chicago. And I would just talk about how life was for him, what drove him, what gave him his passion to be able to serve others and help people as well as take care of his family. Because I've admired him just off of what I've heard and what I've seen, but just to be able to really talk to him because I feel like a lot of what I did and what I'm doing came from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my other grandfather, I just want to just talk to him again. Just I knew him though. He died when I was 25. I just wanted to just talk to him about life, period. I just,
Cool.
just sit there and just kick it with them. Just let
I
the
love
time
it.
go. Cause I was the only grandfather I've known. And so I was really tight with him. I also carry his name. So it was like a different bond. Just for him to just
Yes.
be there. I don't really care. We can talk about anything. Just be there. Yeah.
So, if the United States was a woman with whom you could speak, whether she's a mother, lover, neighbor, stranger, friend, you call it, what would you say to her?
I would say you need to love your people, all of your people. And that's what I say, period. Because America right now, to me, picks and chooses who she decides to love. And I just want to be like, look, we're all here. We've all been here for generations. You need to love all of us because we're all doing things for you to help you carry on. We are all going to the armed services. We're all paying taxes. We're all working in your systems. We're all educating your children. We all need to be loved
Mhm.
in order for us to carry your traditions on. And it's too much separation. So that's what I'll say. Love all of us
Of
equally.
all of us. How about that? Equal as humans.
Right.
Based on your particular expertise and perspective, what excites you about the future of the United States?
What excites me is more so the social classes coming together and fight as one voice. And so injustices nowadays are frowned upon more than ever. And I feel like we have a lot of people that are willing to put themselves on the line for others. Say back in the day, somebody could get away with calling a coworker a nigger or whatever. Nowadays, you better not say that in passing. You better not let anybody hear you say that
Mhm.
because the person that you think is cool with it is not gonna be cool with it. And I see more people getting together, living together more, embracing each other more. And so that's what excites me. I live in a mixed neighborhood out here in the valley, and my daughter had a birthday party, and all of her classmates came. And I was thinking, like, man, growing up, I never had a white kid at my party. Like,
Mhm.
this is different. You know what I mean? Like, I never had a kid that was Persian, and I went to school with a lot of kids, like growing up,
Right.
that were different races, but it was just like, nah, like, birthday parties just for us, and it was a lot more segregated. But now everybody's embracing each other's culture, and I feel like due to the internet and due to us not being ignorant of each other's culture, things are being more so embraced. Like my daughter comes home and asks, "It's like, do you know how to speak Farsi?" And we're like, "What?" No, because she goes to school with Persian kids, and it's just love the fact that she's just getting exposed to different cultures, different nationalities, and because the world isn't just black. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I love black people, I love my people, I love myself, but we are not the world. We have to know how to be ambassadors of our people, but then also be able to be amongst other nations and feel comfortable and understand other nations. Yeah, and I see that happening more and more. Some people talk about gentrification and it's a bad thing, but then I'm thinking like, man, a lot of black people are moving out and moving to predominantly white areas now. So I'm just thinking that a lot of stuff is just almost diverse. I live in a neighborhood where it was probably like not a black person in sight once upon a time.
Mhm.
Now at my kids' school, I see black fathers, black people all the time, all
Yeah.
day. But
Mhm.
when I was living in a predominantly white neighborhood at San Pedro, I was the only, I think me and my brother's the only black kids in the school.
Mhm.
My son
Yeah.
has another black young boy in his class. I was just like, wow, that's amazing. I would have been happy. Black girls in his class and all of that. So I just like the way it's going. I don't really talk bad about people that are racist like that. I just feel like they're ignorant of other people's nationalities and cultures. And for me, I'm big on cultures and learning other people's cultures and customs because a lot of times we could adopt their cultures and customs and bring it into our life and it could help us like Chinese traditional medicine, eating falafels and stuff like that. And me, I was going to do a it's called Kui Dong, right? So like a way to move your body with the
Move
energy
energy.
and stuff like that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was gonna do that before the podcast, but I didn't have enough time. But I'm like, I need to embrace that. And it might be weird looking at a black man sitting there, but I actually love it. These people have been doing it for thousands of years. I have the
Mhm.
opportunity to learn it and adopt it into my life. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
we can all take from other cultures if we're open enough and be like, man, like for me, I hate to say this, but I get tattoos, right? I have a lot of tattoos, but
Hmm.
I prefer to get tattoos by Mexican people. Man,
Okay.
there's a reason why. It's because it's in their tradition for
You
so
you know
long.
you're asking for some trouble right here.
Yeah, but it's just
Yeah.
me. Like, say if we were to
So
go to a soul food restaurant, you would rather go to the one where you know that black people are back there cooking. You know what I'm
true.
saying? You won't
Yes.
go to a soul food restaurant in like Seal Beach. She'll be like, "What the?" Or Huntington Beach. She'll be like, "Oh heck no!" But oh yeah, I heard of a soul food restaurant on Manchester in Vermont. You'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know that's hidden." Like we
Yeah.
can't lie. Like we are not to say that's a racial thing, but it's if that's what it is. You know what
Okay.
I'm
So
saying?
tell
Like
me why would you get your would you prefer your tattoos from Mexican? Because I don't really know
I
that.
feel like it's embedded in their culture. They always were the ones with face tattoos, tattoos all over their body, doing tattoos in jail. So it's besides my brother, he's a black man. He did my some of my tattoos. But my other
Mhm.
tattoo artist is Mexican and he's just so passionate about it. Not to say that they're any different than anybody else, but it was
I
just like
get
you
you.
could just see the passion in it. You know what I'm saying? Say we go to a restaurant. Oh yeah, man, Miss Shirley or whatever has a soul food restaurant over there, and her family back there cooking. I'm like, oh hell yeah, I know it's hidden. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
No,
That's just what it
I
is.
get it.
Yeah,
Because what you're speaking to is the passion behind the work. And anyone can do a tattoo, but are they really related to what a tattoo is, why one gets one, what its power is as something placed on your body permanently.
right.
And so I get what you're saying. Trust me, as a person who's a low key foodie, as soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, because I had the nerve to order some gumbo in this non-black town, non-Cajun town in Northern California. And I remember me and my partner, we asked the waitress that was serving us, we said, okay, what have you heard? Is it good? And she's, oh no, everybody loves it. It's really good and it's spicy. And look, okay, look,
Right.
I know. Call me
I've been
naive. There are a lot of names you can call me for thinking that I could trust this woman. So we got the gumbo. We're looking at it. We take a sip. We looking at each other. And the guy I was with, white guy, he and I look at each other and we're both like, you can't order this here.
right.
Why did we think we could order this here?
Exactly. But then not to say that there's not one that
That's right.
probably is good, you
There,
know?
right?
That's true, but then more than likely it's not gonna have the flavor that you like based off of who's making the food. You know what I'm saying? So it's like going to
Yes.
Taco Bell and going to a restaurant like a Mexican restaurant in Long Beach where they're speaking Spanish and she's working there every day. You might get a little more authentic taste versus
Yes.
like you going to Chile Verde. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Yes.
So I say if somebody tells me that they practice Chinese medicine and there's a guy that's like from China and then there's a guy like from Orange County or whatever, I'm probably
Right.
gonna go by the person whose family's been doing it for thousands of years.
Understood.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying? We all have our biases, though. We all have
yeah. Oh, and you know what? Anyone who thinks they don't have biases,
it's lying
yeah, whatever.
to you're lying to yourself. Come on.
Yeah.
Not other cultures have biases too. I remember
Oh,
one of my Mexican partners was like, "Man, I don't want to eat over there. That's that white people shit. That ain't real Mexican food." And I was like, "What?" Like threw me off. I was like, "Hold on, huh?" I bet it was like that was his bias too. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Yeah.
So we all have it. Sometimes it's bullshit. Sometimes it's true.
So, and they're there. And the key really is being willing to look at them
Mhm.
and double check. And you may decide, no, that's for real though.
Right.
In your experience. Thank you, Sherman, for the time that you spent, for sharing yourself so generously. And I just love in all of your answers, I heard two things. I heard the power of a strong Black man is a practice, and anyone can practice that.
Yeah.
And the books, what you're up to, militant grind, like it's all about that all of us have the capacity. And in particular, as this podcast is specific to Black men, and because you chose autobiography of Malcolm X, just so many of the things you said and talking about Nipsey Hussle, that for Black men, excellence and power is a practice, and anyone can practice it.
Yeah.
So that's really one of the takeaways I get from you. And then also in the grandfather that you would interview if you could, and who Nipsey Hussle was beyond the music, you clearly have a high degree of respect for entrepreneurship. And I know getting laid off sucks, but I also know that sometimes that's the universe saying, look, this is what we want you to do. Yeah, I can tell. I can sense that.
Mhm.
And not everyone gets that universe's nudge that says, look, see, you over here spending your time right here, but let me tell you what you were made for. And there's fear about jumping into it. And so I also acknowledge you for your courage and grace. You got it's hard. It's a grind. It is a grind.
Yeah.
And you know that you're equipped to meet that grind. And you are right there in that line with the Malcolm X, the Nipsey Hussle, and what you're doing. So please continue to do that. And again, thank you for sharing yourself.
Wow, thank you. That was a great compliment. And honestly, I'm glad that that resonated with you because I often tell people that it's a journey and we all have faults and we're all human beings. Like some of us are going to fall short. And that's why it's a continuous practice.